Copper to the moon. G'day scrappers. Today, subject I want to talk about once again is my favourite metal, and that's copper. And well, as you probably already know, that copper has been rising in price quite a lot over this year, and but probably what's more exciting is the future of the copper prices and just where it's going. If you really do a bit of research, you'll find that the mining supply of copper, or the copper in the ground, is running out. The quality is getting less and less what they're pulling out of the ground, and obviously with fuel prices, electricity prices and all that, wages, it's actually a lot more expensive to get copper out of the ground. Now, recycled copper, it makes up for about 10% of the copper that the world uses, and so that's quite a lot. But compared to how much the world needs, 10% in recycled copper is not much. And so as the supplies start running out from in the ground, it's got to go up in price, and quite a lot. And there's a few other factors. There's probably a lot of factors why it's going to continue to rise in price. And to be honest, don't be surprised if we see a giant jump in price with copper in the near future. If not this year, most likely next year. But I think this year we'll start to see some interesting stuff happen with the price of copper. And especially things like, some rumours around, like in America, Trump might introduce the $500 billion infrastructure rebuild program, where they're going to possibly build new factories, new buildings, and really try and kick off the economy. Well, all those factories and buildings is going to require a lot of copper, and there's no real substitute for copper when it comes to high voltage wiring and all that sort of thing. And also, if you look at China, some really exciting things happening there with copper, mostly in electric vehicles. They estimate that, in the next 3 years, just in Beijing alone, they estimate about 5 million electric vehicle recharge points. So that's 5 million stations that are going to pop up out of nowhere. And they're all going to be using a lot of copper to wire it all up and to get it all going, so people with their electronic vehicles can, recharge their cars. And as well as that, you also got electronic vehicles themselves with no engines. A lot of the technology is going into the batteries, and sure, you got lithium and manganese and a few metals like that are going to probably take off. It just depends on the technology. But every electronic vehicle is going to be using a lot more copper than what the average vehicle today does. So that's another exciting thing. The potential is really high, I believe, at the moment. And all I wanted to sort of talk about was, if you can avoid it, don't sell your copper. Keep it. I understand that for a lot of us scrappers, copper really does help when we sell it to the scrapyard to make a little bit of fast cash. But there are so many other metals that we can get a little bit of cash from. I think if you can, hold on to your copper for as long as possible. I think you might be surprised in the value of it, and like I said, it's running out from the ground. There are less and less places that they can get easy copper from. It's starting to get, you know, a lot harder. They're getting less per ton of copper ore. So yeah, it's certainly, you know, potentially it's going to really, you know, it probably surprise a lot of people. And you know, generally the governments and all that, you know, they don't want to really, you know, cause any panic or say, oh, we're going to run out of copper, and you know, it won't be long till, you know, it's going to shoot up in price. It might even go, you know, who knows, you know. It wouldn't surprise me. What currently at the moment we're looking at about $7,100 US per ton. So in Australian dollars, that's about $9,400 per ton. And, you know, obviously quite a lot more than what the scrapyards are paying us. This particular copper here was given to me. I bought it off a scrapper here in Australia. Some really nice heavy gauge wire. He's actually, don't know if he's listening, but he's actually a very resourceful scrapper. He's probably one of the most resourceful scrappers in the world that I know of. It's just a shame he doesn't go on YouTube and show his day-to-day activities, because yeah, he's pretty amazing in you know, how much scrap he can find just out in the streets, dump masters and all that. He'll put a lot of us to shame. But anyway, so that's my thing at the moment is, as you know, I like to melt my copper and make copper ingots. And I get actually, you know, more value out of copper because people like to stack copper just like they stack other bullion like gold or silver. They like it in bullion form, and you only have to look at, you know, go to a place like Atmex and see how much they sell their copper bullion for. Just a 1 ounce coin sells for about 20 times the price of copper, and they sell a lot of it, you know. So I recommend at least keeping copper like this, however you get it. Doesn't matter whether it's, you know, your bright and shiny, or whether it's your candy type copper or burnt, whatever they call it. It's all copper. And yeah, I think the future of copper is really bright, and you should, you know, personally, if I was you, I wouldn't sell any of my copper. I'd just keep stockpiling it. If you can manage that, if you can afford not to sell your scrap, I'd keep it, because as you know, scrapyards really want your copper, and they're making pretty good money on it. They make it probably about at least a 40% markup, some 50%. So, you know, it's you know, it's a good business for them, and you know, you're basically giving away 50% of the value to a scrapyard just for the privilege of getting a little bit of cash. And but you know, that's at today's prices, and you know, it's a bit of a speculation, you know, but geez, you know, I think there's a potential for it to really rise up and be the new star of scrap metal in the next couple of years. I think it's going to really surprise a lot of people. And yeah, so out of everything that you scrap from, you know, scrapping e-waste or scrapping on the streets, yeah, I think copper is a good investment, you know, instead of just like putting money in the bank. But you know, in the bank you're not going to earn any interest, whereas, you know, you could you know, potentially double your value of copper in a year or two just by keeping it. So that's just a little thing for me, you know, and it's up to you. But if you can afford to, keep on to your copper. Don't sell it unless you want to melt it down and you know, value add to it, because when I turn this copper into an ingot, I'll increase the value 6 times. And so That's about the only way I would sell my copper now, is in ingot form, and you know, just nice 1 kilo bars. So I turn, you know, this stuff into ingots, and yeah, some people will say, oh, there's no extra value. Well, there really is, believe me, because I can even sell this copper on eBay for quite a lot more than it's worth. People just want copper, so they go and buy it, and it's very hard to buy off a scrapyard. You're going to pay, you know, top dollar, and most scrapyards won't sell it to you, no matter what you offer them. But in ingot form like this is over 1 kilo. You know, on eBay, believe it or not, you know, scrap value, I could sell this to the scrapyard for about probably about $8. I sell this on eBay for almost $50. If you don't believe me, well, I've got sales on eBay already, and you just try yourself and you'll see for yourself. I know of guys that have sold copper for like $9 a pound on eBay, just copper wire, let alone a hand poured bar. And you know, if you like your metals, and a lot of people like their metals, they want a copper bar, well, you know, this is the only way you can really get it, unless you pay bullion prices. And you know, being hand poured is a lot different than a machined copper bar and stuff like that. You know, sometimes they sell buzz bars, which are just cut up and stamped, you know, but hand poured is a totally different thing. It's more like, you know, artisan type of bullion. And yeah, so, but that's my thing. Even if you're just keeping your copper as it is, I think you'll do really well in future. The only other metal that I think is underpriced is aluminium. If I go here, but not all aluminium. So here we've got your regular sheet aluminium, just any type of junky aluminium, even heat sinks that are not extruded, and even pieces of cast aluminium, which, you know, like this piece here is kind of like a cast, and it is worth a little bit more, but I just prefer to have one bin, and I just mix it all in, and good luck to them, because all this aluminium is quite difficult to melt, like this thin sheet aluminium. Yeah, when you go to melt it, you'll find that you'll make so much dross that it's almost not worth it. And a lot of people will melt aluminium cans, and that's probably the worst thing to melt, because it's just, you know, even aluminium foil. This basically just burns away before you actually get to, you know, get the aluminium melted. And so, yeah. See, like that really nice piece of cast aluminium here. Now, sure, that's worth a little bit more than just your sheet aluminium. If you get a lot of it, obviously you want to separate it, but still it's worth selling, because it's not very good to melt down and turn into ingots or anything like that. Whereas extruded aluminium, that's a different ball game. Extruded aluminium is your highest quality of aluminium that we can actually find in scrap. There's no doubt about it. And so anything that's been extruded, like these camera housings, you can see the extrusion. And basically, you know, some people ask, what is extruded? Well, if you can imagine a solid chunk of aluminium that's like a big tube, and it's been melted slightly, or well, heated up slightly, and then they make a mold, say like this. They'll make a mold that's shaped like that, and then they'll get this solid rod of aluminium, and they'll push it through the mold, and it'll push through, right through, and out the other end it comes out like that. So it's kind of like one piece aluminium, and that's what extruded is. And like, you know, see these little grooves and stuff, like that would be impossible to make it any other way than from extrusion. And so the reason why it's not because it's just simply extruded, but the type of aluminium that they need to use for the extrusion process needs to be of very high quality. And when you melt this down, you'll find that it's really nice to melt. You don't get as much rubbish and dross as you would with the sheet aluminium. So I personally I don't waste my time trying to melt down sheet aluminium. You're better off just selling it. Even though aluminium actually, you know, it goes for okay money, but it's actually worth probably double what you're actually getting from the scrapyard. For some reason, they just don't pay closer to the value like they do with copper, and probably because aluminium is just such a common item in the ground. I mean, it's probably the third or fourth most abundant mineral or metal in Earth. So there's more, you know, aluminium than pretty much everything else. So aluminium is not going to run out anytime soon. The only reason why it still goes up in price is simply the mining expenses. You know, it costs money to get this out of the ground. And but don't be surprised if aluminium starts going up in scrap value anyway, because you know, you know, it gets more and more expensive to get it out of the ground, and recycling it is really easy. They don't get much wastage. So, but I recommend keeping your extruded aluminium. Like for me, I don't keep big things like that because I can't really do anything with it. You know, or giant heat sinks like that. I can't do much with that. And you know, it's not worth for me to cut it up into small pieces. That would take up all the value. You know, same like that. You see that shape and that. You know, that's not bent into shape. That's been molded. It's just pushed through a mold, and it just forms like that as soon as it comes out the other end. So that's what they mean by extruded. You know. You know, whereas that, you'll see that it's actually just a flat sheet that's just been bent over, and so that's just sheet aluminium. But yeah, what I do keep are these small heat sinks, solid aluminium, and because I will melt these down. So I'm yet to sort through this, but I'll take out all these good little pieces, small aluminium, and I'll keep that for melting, or just generally just stacking as an investment, and sell the rest, and sell all my sheet aluminium. But the main subject here is copper. Copper is the main man. You know, if you can hold off selling copper at least for the next 2 years, I think you'll be surprised. You're certainly not going to lose. You cannot lose, because we're running out of copper out of the ground. You can't lose. So it's better than money in the bank, and you know, it's better than probably most investments at this stage if you get it for free. You know, obviously if you're paying for copper, then you know there's not going to be much in it for you. Yeah, and if you're turning it into ingots like this, you know, you can increase your value. And if you don't believe me, try and make a few copper ingots like this and put them on eBay for you know, at least 6 times the scrap value, and you'll see they sell very easily. Obviously this one's rough. I'm not going to sell this. This will get melted back down, and I'll make a better one, you know, with no craters and stuff and that. And it's also quite dark, so basically you can see that's nice and bright, and that will tarnish over time, and that's how copper goes. So it's just tarnish. You can repolish this if you want, but you know, that's just natural copper. And so yeah, so hold on to your copper, guys, don't sell it, and I think you'll really do well. The only other thing that I would not sell, that is a real hot commodity, is RAM. Computer RAM. this is as far as gold recovery is concerned, this is the holy grail. It's what everyone wants, and there is no problem selling this whatsoever. And whatever your scrap prices are, like some places like in the States, they might be paying about $14 a pound for ram. Trust me, it's not enough. $14 a pound, it's just not enough. It's worth much more, believe it or not. And recyclers all over the world, they want this stuff desperately. They'll even sell you all their ceramic CPUs and all that for gold recovery if you can sell them your RAM, because that's what they really want. This board, this bin, it weighs, I don't know what it weighs, but it's very heavy. It's time almost to seal this away and send this off to my off-site storage site. And yeah, that's for the future. And even your normal RAM, like your silver RAM, or if you have tried gold recovery and you've removed all your fingers, you know, obviously we know we've still got the IC chips and we've still got quite a bit of value here, but it's a lot harder to sell this stuff. You don't get much money. Even the big recyclers, they don't really want this. They want the gold fingers, you know. But still, it's there's still plenty of gold recovery in those IC chips, and this tin or silver, it doesn't make any difference. It's worth about the same. We don't really worry about going for that, but gold RAM, again, unless you really needed the money, I suggest you keep your gold RAM for long term, because as I said, you're looking at about $14 or $14.50 a pound in the US. Believe me, and that's just on today's gold prices. Don't be surprised, I keep saying that one day we're going to wake up in the morning and we're going to find gold has gone from $1,300 an ounce to $13,000 an ounce, possibly $30,000 an ounce. Who knows? And so I think it's going to be an awful shame for those guys that have sold a lot of their RAM. For the maximum price you can get for RAM at the moment, it's not even worth recovering the gold, because obviously the refiners are going for more than just the gold. You can get a little bit, you get some silver out of it, you get tin and nickel, and even some platinum in the IC chips, and obviously palladium from the MLCCs, and then at the end you even get copper from inside the board. The boards are lined with copper, so there's a lot of metals in there, and that's why refiners don't mind paying top dollar for RAM, because it's the number one commodity as far as e-waste, and it always will be. And so like your modern style RAM has got your BGA chips, right? Even better, less to process for the refiner, less ceramic stuff and all that, but the gold bonding wires are all in there, and so RAM hasn't reduced in its gold content since the 70s. It's still the same stuff. It's still just as valuable as it was in the 70s, so, and that's never going to change. And so I suggest that if you get good quantities of RAM, hang on to it. And this is like your superannuation fund, this like a retirement fund. You're going to I think you're going to be very surprised one day. Like I said, we'll all wake up one day and to find that gold is $30,000 or $40,000 an ounce, and that's going to change the whole ball game. Then you're starting to look at $300 a pound. Then you're really talking turkey. So, number one e-waste commodity in the world forever, RAM. Number one scrappers commodity forever, copper or copper, Depends where you are in the world. In Europe, it'll be copper. But however you pronounce it, it doesn't matter how you pronounce it, because it's the same stuff all over the world. And if you can, it doesn't matter if it's really red like that and crappy, that'll burn off and we'll get the nice bright shiny copper from underneath it. And so that's my little recommendation. Stockpile it, and just like gold, one day you could wake up to find that copper is shot up in price. But it's not going to happen like it would happen with gold, because it's not really related to the economy. Copper is more related to so like my explanation is, or my way of thinking is, when the economy drops, right? So when the economy drops down, gold goes up. When the economy goes up, copper goes up. Because when the economy goes up, so does building and infrastructure, and they build more things, and so they need more copper, and it's not going to go away. Some people will say, they're replacing copper with aluminium wire. Not really. Some electronics, but generally copper is copper, and you just can't substitute copper for anything else, really. And it's used in not just electronics, it's used in so many things, even medical and all that. But with the new technology of electronic vehicles coming out, obviously there's going to be more copper used. And like I mentioned, just China alone, just Beijing alone, one state, are already building up to 5 million electronic charging points all around the city, so people can charge up their vehicles. And so therefore they're all going to need a lot of copper to wire them all up. And yeah, as I mentioned, the Trump promise of $500 billion injection into the infrastructure of America, or whatever he's planned, if that goes ahead, that's a lot of factories, that's a lot of buildings going to get built, and they're all going to need new copper. And so yeah, the potential in the next year or two, copper to go sky high. And so I recommend at least keep it for the couple of years, see how you go. If you then decide to sell it, then good luck, up to you. But RAM will never go away when it comes to being the best commodity in e-waste. And so I recommend, don't worry about what it's worth today. Don't worry about what kind of gold you can get out of it today. That's irrelevant, okay? Keep it as it is. It's actually worth more as it is than the gold you'll get, because there's other metals that they get out of it. And yeah, speculate on something. You know, we all need something to speculate on. And, like I said, if in a few years' time, or even 10 years' time, if gold, jumps up like that and goes crazy, and because it's so undervalued, it's not funny. It's gold is the most manipulated commodity on earth, and if gold was let free to do its real thing, well, it would be a lot more than $1,300 US an ounce, I can assure you. So give it a chance, sit on it. Doesn't matter how long you sit on it, you're never going to lose on RAM. No way, no. And one day you might do really well and be quite surprised. Alright guys, well, there you go. That's all I wanted to talk about today. Copper to the moon. Hang on to it. Don't sell it. From wherever you get it, just keep holding on to it. And I think you're going to be really happy about keeping it. Alright guys, I'll keep scrapping, and I'll catch you next time soon with some more stuff. Your crappy power boards, you've got the option to sell that if you want to a board buyer, or you can take off this nice extruded aluminium. You can bust open these transformers and you can get that copper out of there, and you're going to get a lot better value instead of just selling it to the scrapyard, because you know, right off the bat, the scrapyard is going to be making 40% off you, and that's just at today's prices. But if you know, copper jumps up, which I think it will start to head up quite high, I think we'll all do well. So keep scrapping, guys, and I'll catch you next time.